When I'm in deep sleep, there is no ego, no world, just the self. When I get up from sleep, all I know is that I slept well, but there's no experience of self or self-realization. So I practice self-investigation during meditation and actually realize the self. Then, after I finish meditation, will it be just like waking up from sleep and it disappears? If so, then I will never realize myself, this person states. How will I know that I have self-realization?
Okay, yeah, this is also an interesting question. Yes, when we're in deep sleep, there's no ego or world, just our own being, what we actually are. But the next sentence, when I get up from sleep, all I know is that I slept well. Who is the I who gets up from sleep? That is ego. That is, when we fall asleep, we as ego subside back into our own being. When we wake up from sleep or begin to dream, we as ego rise up again. So why do we not know anything other than we slept well? Because we as ego didn't exist in sleep. But when we say I slept well, who is the I who, what, that means that I was there in sleep. So what is the difference between the I that gets up and the I that slept well? The I that slept well is what we actually are. That's the pure I. The I that gets up, that rises from sleep, is ego, which is the same pure I, but mixed and conflated with adjuncts. Because we are now mixed and conflated with adjuncts, we are viewing sleep through the eyes of ego. And through the eyes of ego, sleep seems to be, okay, it was a very pleasant state, very peaceful. I was perfectly happy there. I didn't have any problems in sleep. But it just looks like darkness from the perspective of ego in the waking state. Why does it look like darkness? Because as ego, we are not aware of ourselves as we actually are. What was existing in sleep was only that awareness of ourselves as we actually are. Since we are not now not aware of ourselves as we actually are, we're aware of ourselves as something other than what we actually are. Sleep seems to us to be a state of darkness. But actually, according to Bhagavan, sleep is a state of pure awareness. Does that mean then sleep is the perfect state? Yes and no. Sleep is the perfect state in that all that exists in sleep is what we actually are, our real nature, the pure I. Sleep is imperfect because from the perspective of ego in waking and dream, we seem to have come out of it. So there's no imperfection in sleep as such. The imperfection is our rising from sleep. So it's our rising which is the problem. Our rising as ego is the problem. How to put an end to this rising? The rising occurs when we mistake ourselves to be something other than what we actually are. That is, as ego, we're always aware of ourselves as I am this body. I am such and such a person. I am Tusha or whoever. So it's in order to get rid of this false adjunct conflated I, what we need to do is to hold on to the core of it, to the I itself. To the extent to which we hold on to I, we thereby let go of everything else. So the adjuncts that we have now conflated with ourselves will drop off. Because these adjuncts are not holding us. We are holding the adjuncts. Who is it? That is, it's ego that says, I am this body. It's not the body that says, I am ego. It's the ego that says, I am a body. The body is jada. Body that is devoid of awareness. So ego, but body is innocent. It's just an object. But the problem is ego, that which identifies itself as I am this body. So, so long as we rise as ego, sleep will seem to us to be a dark state. However, the more we practice self-investigation, the more we become aware of ourselves, more clearly we become aware of ourselves. Not at first we don't become perfectly aware of ourselves, but more we begin to become aware of ourselves as something distinct from this body. So the deeper we go in the practice of self-investigation, the clearer it will become to us that sleep is actually a state of pure awareness. Sleep is not a state of darkness, it's a state of pure awareness. It's a state of light. Because as we become more and more familiar with this core awareness I am, in isolation from all other things, we are able to recognize that same pure I am was also shiny in sleep. So coming to the questions, when you say, if I practice self-investigation during meditation and actually realize the self, then after I finish meditation, will it be just like waking up from a sleep? That is, if you practice self-investigation and realize yourself, that is, realizing it's not, but the I that is investigating itself will never know itself, because the I that is investigating itself is ego. What happens is when we investigate ourselves, ego subsides. That is, the adjuncts drop off and the pure I alone remains. So when the pure I alone remains, that is the annihilation of ego. So then there's no, it's not like getting up after sleep, because getting up after from sleep, we as ego rise. When we know ourselves as we actually are, ego will thereby be destroyed, so it never rises again. So there's no question of it then finishing meditation and waking up like as from sleep. That is not what happens. The ego that is investigating itself thereby is eradicated. It's completely destroyed. It's destroyed so completely, it's not even as if there was previous an ego and now it has been destroyed. Though that destruction of ego is often called manonasa, destruction of mind, because ego is the essence of the mind, it is not actually a destruction. As Bhagavan says in verse 17 of Upadeshandya, when we investigate the form of the mind without forgetting, there's no such thing as mind at all. That means if we investigate ourselves, the form of the mind means the essential form of the mind is the pure awareness I am. So that's the mind's, in the previous verse he referred to it as the mind's form of light. That means the light of awareness, the pure awareness. So when we investigate that light of awareness I am, we will find that there's no such thing as mind at all. So it's not that the mind once existed and has been destroyed. It is clearly seen that there never was any mind. So there's no question of rising from that state. So the state of what is called self-realization, it's not actually a very ideal term, because but it's a term that people have got used to. It's actually a state of just knowing and being what we actually are. And we are always that. So, but because we've now risen as ego, we are not aware of ourselves as that. We're aware of ourselves as I am, plus something more. I am this body. That is, we're aware of ourselves mixed and conflated with adjuncts. When we know ourselves as we actually are, that ego which identifies itself with adjuncts is thereby destroyed completely. Now, even say destroyed, as I say, it's not quite correct. It is found that that ego never existed. What then remains is what always exists, which is the pure awareness I am. And then you ask, how will I know that I have self-realization? That is, ego will never know I have self-realization, because ego can never know itself. Ego can only be destroyed. The destruction of ego is what is called self-realization. So what is it that realizes itself? That which always knows itself. So it's not that any knowledge is gained, all the false knowledge is removed, And the real knowledge, the pure awareness I am, alone remains. So what knows that pure awareness I am? Only the pure awareness I am, which always knows itself.
So for a realized person, it doesn't matter he's asleep or he's awake, or he's always aware that who he is.
Yes,
What he,
that is, sleeping and waking is only for ego. When we know ourselves as we actually are, we'll know that there never was any ego, and therefore never was any waking, dream, or sleep. People say, oh, but Bhagavan was in the waking state. Bhagavan said he dreamt. Bhagavan also slept. So are these three states not for Bhagavan? It seems to us to be so because we take Bhagavan to be that body. But Bhagavan's fundamental teaching is, I am not this body. So Bhagavan has said very clearly, waking, dream, and sleep do not actually exist. It's only for those for whom these three states seem to exist, but the real state is called Turiya, the fourth. But actually, what actually exists is only that Turiya, that so-called fourth state, which is the only existing state. So when we know ourselves as we actually are, we'll know there never was any ego, and therefore never was any waking, dream, or sleep.